What would happen if you combined the 4 cheapest ingredients in a grocery store into one mixture and tested it head-to-head against a $22 commercial? Deer Attractant on trail camera for 6 weeks, because I did that last fall, and the homemade version pulled 34 deer visits, compared to 19 for the commercial product on the same travel corridor 200 yards apart. Roughly 2 football fields of separation. The 4 ingredients are blackstrap molasses, corn oil, trace mineral salt from the feed store, and pure vanilla extract. Total cost per application is roughly $2. The commercial product I tested against was Evolved Habitat's Deer Cane Black. Magic at $22 per bag. Same corridor, same cameras, same 6-week window from mid-September through the end of October. The homemade mix did not just match it, it nearly doubled the visit count, and the reason is not that one product is better than the other. The reason is that the homemade mix hits 3 separate olfactory channels simultaneously, a caloric signal, a mineral signal, and a curiosity signal, while the commercial product hits 1. Before we get into the chemistry, I need to say this up front. Placing attractants on the ground for the purpose of luring deer is classified as baiting in roughly 20 states. Legal in some states year-round. Legal in others outside of hunting season only. Illegal in others entirely. Check your state regulations before you use this or any attractant. I am describing the mixture and the camera data. Your local game laws determine whether you can use it. If you have mixed your own attractant and tested it on camera, I want to hear the results. Stay until the end because there is a specific application method involving a rotting stump that extends the effective life of this mixture from 5 days to roughly 3 weeks without refreshing. The surface understanding of deer attractants is simple. Pour something sweet on the ground. Deer smell it. Deer come to it. That understanding is not wrong. It is just shallow. And shallow is why most homemade attractant recipes work for a few days and then stop pulling deer. The deeper understanding starts with the 3 olfactory channels and why each ingredient in this mixture targets a different one. Channel 1 is the caloric signal. Blackstrap molasses and corn oil are both dense calorie sources. Blackstrap molasses contains roughly 60% sugar by weight, primarily sucrose with smaller amounts of glucose and fructose. It also contains iron, calcium, magnesium, and potassium in concentrations roughly 5 times higher than regular molasses because the refining process concentrates the minerals into the final extraction. The volatile compounds in blackstrap, specifically melanoidins and furfuryl, produce a heavy, sweet, slightly burnt aroma that carries on thermals further than refined sugar because the molecules are heavier and more persistent in humid air. Corn oil adds a fat-based caloric signal that molasses alone cannot provide. The primary fatty acids in corn oil are linoleic acid at roughly 55% and oleic acid at roughly 28%. Both are unsaturated fats that remain liquid at outdoor temperatures down to roughly 10 degrees Fahrenheit, about -12 Celsius, which means the oil stays active and dispersible in cold weather when solid fats like suet or tallow congeal and stop releasing scent. A deer's rumen, which is the first chamber of the 4-chamber stomach, processes both sugar and fat into volatile fatty acids that fuel the deer's metabolism. The caloric signal from molasses plus corn oil tells the deer's nose that a high-energy food source is nearby. Not a mineral, not a curiosity item. Food. Channel 2 is the mineral signal. Trace mineral salt from the feed store at roughly $5 for a 50-pound bag provides sodium, zinc, copper, selenium, and manganese. Deer crave these minerals from March through August during antler growth and lactation because the biological demand for calcium, phosphorus, and trace elements during those periods exceeds what natural forage provides. The sodium in the salt creates a long-range scent draw because sodium chloride is hygroscopic, meaning it absorbs moisture from the air, and the dissolved sodium ions produce a faint but detectable mineral scent that carries on thermals. The trace elements, zinc and copper specifically, interact with soil bacteria at the application site to produce secondary volatile compounds that mimic the scent profile of a natural mineral lick. A buddy who runs a 400-acre lease in Buffalo County, Wisconsin, that agricultural coulee country along the Mississippi River bluffs where the ridges drop 500 feet into corn and alfalfa bottoms, tested straight salt blocks against salt mixed into the molasses and oil blend. The straight 50-pound salt block at $8 from the feed store pulled 12 deer visits over 4 weeks. The salt mixed into the blend pulled 28 visits over the same 4 weeks on a parallel ridge 300 yards away, roughly 3 football fields of separation. Same mineral, different delivery. The blend won because the molasses and oil carried the mineral scent further downwind and the wet application, soaked into the soil where deer could smell it from below as they walked over the treated area. The dry block just sat on the surface and waited for a deer to stumble onto it. I made the same mistake my first year mixing attractants. I poured the blend on hard-packed clay soil at a scrape site and got 6 visits in the first 4 days. Then it rained. The water washed the surface application downhill and the scent output dropped to nothing. I found the discolored runoff streak 15 yards below the scrape where the molasses had pooled in a low spot. The deer visited the runoff pool, not the original scrape. The attractant went where gravity took it, not where I wanted it. The rotting stump method solved this because the wood absorbs and holds the liquid through rain events. A stump that is soft enough to push your thumb into, roughly the texture of a wet sponge, can absorb a full cup of the blend without any running off the surface. The blend soaks in like water into a paper towel and releases slowly as the wood dries between rain events. I learned the hard way that the delivery surface matters as much as the mixture itself. Quick pause here. Everything I just walked through, and 100 more tricks like it, is sitting inside the Buck Hunter's Bible 2026 edition. 280 pages of the stuff that actually puts deer on the ground, and right now, if you grab it, I am throwing in the 30-day opening day roadmap completely free. That is a 60-page day-by-day preseason plan that walks you from the first scout to opening morning so you start this season ahead of every other hunter in the woods. Link in the description, QR code on screen. This is the season you stop guessing. Channel 3 is the curiosity signal. Pure vanilla extract contains vanillin, a phenolic aldehyde compound that does not exist in the natural diet or environment of a white-tailed deer. When a deer encounters vanillin in an area where it has never smelled it before, it triggers what biologists call a neophilic response, which is the instinct to investigate novel stimuli in a familiar environment. The deer does not approach the vanilla because it thinks it is food. It approaches because it does not recognize the scent, and its brain flags it for investigation. Curiosity pulls deer that are not hungry and not mineral deficient, the two groups that caloric and mineral signals miss. An old buck that has plenty of food and adequate minerals in his diet has no biological reason to visit a molasses and salt site. But vanillin is new. He has never smelled it in this spot before. His nose says investigate. The curiosity channel catches the deer that the other two channels cannot reach. I confirmed this on my Tennessee property when I photographed a mature buck at the full blend site that never appeared at my straight molasses and mineral site's 150 yards away. He was a 4.5-year-old with no biological need for supplemental calories or minerals. His body condition was excellent. His range included standing soybeans and a natural mineral seep along the creek. He had no reason to visit a food or mineral site. But the vanilla was something he had never encountered in that spot, and his nose pulled him in to investigate. He checked the site 3 times over 2 weeks. Each visit was between 4:30 and 5:15 p.m., which put him there during legal shooting hours. I did not kill him. My stand was 80 yards from the stump, and the wind was wrong on 2 of the 3 visits. The 3rd visit, I was not in the stand because I had used my only available hunting day that week on a different setup. But knowing he existed and knowing his timing window changed my stand strategy for the rest of the season. I hung a new stand 25 yards from the stump on a white oak that gave me a clean downwind position on a southwest wind and caught him at 18 yards on. November 2nd, he was nosing the stump at 4:48 p.m. That buck would not exist in my notebook if the vanilla had not been in the mixture. That is a huntable mature buck that the molasses and salt alone would not have attracted. The vanilla added a 3rd buyer to the customer base. I tested vanilla alone versus the full 4-ingredient blend on my any Tennessee property, that Appalachian Ridge and Valley country between Johnson City and Greenville, where the hardwood ridges run northeast to southwest and the creek. Bottoms hold thick stands of poplar and hemlock. Vanilla alone on a cotton ball pulled 11 deer visits over 3 weeks. All 11 were does and young bucks. No mature buck investigations. The curiosity signal alone was not enough to pull in an older deer that had learned to approach novel scents with caution. But the full blend, with its caloric and mineral components layered under the vanilla, gave the mature bucks a reason to commit beyond simple curiosity. The food signal said, this is worth eating. The mineral signal said, this is worth licking. The vanilla said, this is worth investigating. A young buck needs only one reason to approach. A mature buck needs all 3 before he commits to closing the distance from 60 yards to 15. The full blend pulled 28 over the same 3 weeks on a parallel ridge, including 4 visits from bucks I classified as 3. 5 years or older based on body size and antler mass in the photos. Vanilla alone catches curious deer. The full blend catches curious deer, hungry deer, and mineral-seeking deer. 3 channels beats 1. I want to address a concern that comes up every time I discuss homemade attractants. Some hunters worry that mixing multiple scent profiles confuses deer instead of attracting them. The argument is that a deer encountering an unfamiliar combination of food, mineral, and novelty scents might interpret the mixture as artificial and avoid it. I had the same concern before I ran the cameras. The data did not support it. Deer investigated the multi-channel blend more frequently and for longer durations than single-ingredient sites on the same property. The NDA's research on whitetail olfactory processing suggests that deer process scent signals independently through different receptor groups in the nasal epithelium. The food signal is processed by one receptor group, the mineral signal by another, the novelty signal by a third. Each channel triggers its own behavioral response independently. The deer is not confused by the combination any more than you are confused by smelling coffee, bacon, and fresh bread at the same time. Each smell registers separately. Each one makes you want to walk toward the kitchen. A rockslide thread from 2023 with over 200 replies documented hunters in 14 states using some variation of the molasses and mineral blend. The consistent report was that the multi-ingredient mixtures outperformed single-ingredient applications on camera by margins of 30 to 60% in visit frequency, not scientific proof, forum data never is, but 200 replies across 14 states is a signal worth paying attention to. The recipe is simple. 1 cup of blackstrap molasses, roughly $4 for a 12-ounce bottle at any grocery store. A quarter cup of corn oil, roughly $3 for a 48-ounce bottle that provides enough for 12 applications. A quarter cup of trace mineral salt, roughly 5 cents worth from a 50-pound bag, and 2 tablespoons of pure vanilla extract, roughly $3 for a $2 bottle. Mix in a jar. Stir until the salt partially dissolves. The consistency should be thick and pourable, like warm pancake syrup with grit in it. Pour roughly half a cup over a stump, a log, or a shallow scrape in the dirt about 18 inches across, roughly the size of a large dinner plate. The stump method I promised at the beginning is the detail that changes this from a 5-day attractant into a 3-week attractant. Find a rotting stump, soft enough that you can push your thumb into the wood, roughly the texture of a damp sponge. Pour the mixture directly onto the top of the stump and let it soak in. The spongy wood absorbs the liquid and releases it slowly over days as temperature and humidity fluctuate. Look, I am going to be straight with you. Everything I am walking through in this video is just a small piece of what is inside the Buck Hunter's Bible, 2026 edition, 280 pages, 101 field-tested tricks, and right now you also get the 30-day opening day roadmap free with it. A 60-page day-by-day plan that gets you ready before the season even starts. I do not know how long that bonus stays in the deal, but if you have been watching these videos and thinking this could be my season, that is the move. Link in the description below, QR code on screen. Make this the year. A stump application on my Texas Hill Country lease that's cedar and live oak scrubland along the Llano River where the limestone ridges are covered in ash juniper and the deer density runs 1 deer per 3 to 5 acres lasted 19 days before the camera visits dropped off. The same mixture poured on bare dirt lasted 5 days before rain washed it into the soil below the scent-active layer. The rotting stump acts as a slow-release delivery system. The wood fibers hold the sugars, oils, and mineral salts in a matrix that rain cannot wash away as easily as a surface application. The vanilla volatiles, being the lightest molecules in the mixture, release first and create the initial curiosity draw during the first 3 to 5 days. The molasses sugars release next over days 4 through 10 as bacterial fermentation in the damp wood produces secondary volatile compounds, specifically ethanol and acetic acid, that add a sour-sweet fermentation scent to the caloric signal. The mineral salts release last over days 10 through 20 as the hygroscopic sodium absorbs moisture from rain and dew and leaches slowly out of the wood fibers. I verify the sequential release by checking the stump sites at 5-day intervals. Day 5, the stump smelled strongly of vanilla and sweet molasses. Day 10, the vanilla was gone and the stump smelled sour and fermented, like overripe fruit mixed with vinegar. Day 15, the fermentation smell had faded and the stump smelled faintly mineral and salty, like a lick block that had been rained on. Day 20, the scent was barely detectable to my nose, which means it was probably still readable to a deer from 120 to 30 yards, but not from the 80 to 100 yard range that a fresh application reaches. At day 20, I refreshed the stump with a new half-cup application and the cycle started over. 3 applications covered an entire 60-day camera survey from September through October. Total cost for 3 applications on 1 stump was roughly $6. The evolved Habitats product for the same 60-day period at the recommended refresh rate of every 2 weeks would have run roughly $66. The 3-channel signal arrives in sequence, curiosity first, then food, then mineral, which means the attractant changes its scent profile over time and does not go stale the way a single ingredient product does. A corn pile smells like corn on day 1 and corn on day 14. This mixture smells like vanilla on day 1, fermented molasses on day 7, and mineral salt on day 14. The deer's nose encounters a different signal each week, which keeps the investigation response active longer than a static scent source. Where this does not work is on properties directly adjacent to large-scale agricultural operations where the deer have unlimited access to corn, soybeans, and alfalfa. If a deer can eat 8 pounds of shelled corn from a standing field 200 yards from your stump, your half cup of molasses and oil is not going to compete. The caloric signal is overwhelmed by the industrial-scale food source next door. On those properties, drop the molasses and corn oil entirely and use only the vanilla and mineral salt as a curiosity and mineral draw. The caloric channel is already saturated by the agriculture. The curiosity and mineral channels still work because they address different biological needs. The opposite problem exists on properties with poor soil and limited natural forage. On my Tennessee property, where the acidic mountain soil produces low mineral vegetation, the mineral channel in the blend is the dominant draw. The deer on that ground are mineral-starved from March through September, and the trace salt in the mixture pulls them harder than the molasses, or vanilla. I adjusted the recipe for that property by doubling the salt to a half cup per application and reducing the molasses to a half cup. Different ground, different deficiency, different recipe ratio. There is no single formula that works identically on every property. The ingredients stay the same. The ratios shift based on what your deer need most. The cost comparison over a full season tells the story. 6 applications of the homemade blend across 3 stumps over 12 weeks cost roughly $12 in total ingredients. 6 applications of Evolved Habitat's Deer Cane Black Magic cost $132. Wild Game Innovations Sugar Beet Crush at $18 per bag runs $108 for the same. Period. Seamere Deer at $20 per bottle runs $120. Over 5 seasons, the homemade blend costs roughly $60. The commercial equivalents cost $540 to $660. My Hoyt VTM 34 costs $200. The homemade blend saves enough over 5 years to cover half a new bow. The deer on camera did not care which product I used. They responded to the scent profile, not the label. I should mention one thing I got wrong during my first season testing this blend. I used imitation vanilla extract instead of pure vanilla extract because it was cheaper, roughly done $50 versus $3. The imitation version contains synthetic vanillin derived from wood pulp or petrochemical sources. It smells similar to real vanilla to a human nose, but the volatile profile is simpler, fewer secondary compounds, less complexity. My camera data from the imitation vanilla blend was mediocre, 14 visits in 3 weeks compared to 28 with the pure vanilla version. The deer noticed the difference even though I could not smell it. Pure vanilla extract contains over 200 volatile compounds beyond vanillin, including eugenol, coumarin, and various phenolic acids. Those secondary compounds create a richer, more complex curiosity signal that the simulated version cannot replicate. The $150 savings cost me roughly half the deer visits. Use the real stuff. The deer's 297 million olfactory receptors can tell the difference even if your 5 million cannot. If you have tried a homemade attractant blend and tested it on camera against a commercial product, leave your data below. Next time we are covering the 5 worst places to put an attractant site and why 3 of them are exactly where most hunters choose. I want to address the obvious question. If this works so well, why does nobody sell it commercially? Because the shelf life is roughly 2 weeks at room temperature before the molasses ferments and the mixture turns sour in a way that repels deer, instead of attracting them. A commercial product needs 18 to 24 months of shelf stability. This blend does not have that. The preservatives and stabilizers that would extend the shelf life would dilute the volatile compounds that make it work. You cannot bottle it. You cannot ship it. You have to mix it in your kitchen and use it within a week. That is the trade-off. Fresh and potent with a short shelf life, or preserved and diluted with a long one. The commercial companies chose shelf life. You can choose potency. The stumps are out there. The ingredients are in your kitchen. Try one site this summer and let the camera tell you what happens. And if the first batch ferments faster than you expected because you mixed it 3 weeks early and forgot about it in the garage, pour it out. Do not use fermented attractant. The sour smell that develops after 2 weeks at room temperature crosses over from deer attractant into the decomposition profile that pulls predators instead of deer. Fresh batch, fresh stump, fresh start. The deer will be there when you are ready.